Okay, so we're recording. Okay, so hi everybody, and welcome to this interview with Ginger Moran, who is an author, a book coach, and she has written, among other books, this one here, The Other First to Know. Excellent, she definitely get it. And I know she's writing another book now, so we're going to talk about how that's going, and what the writing process is like for her. So, hi Ginger, thank you so much.
Hi, Katja. Hi, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, truly.
So, if you can just share with us, how long you've been doing what you're doing, how long you've been writing, and the books and everything. Just introduce yourself, please.
Mm-hmm. So I have been writing for a really long time. I'm not going to say how many years because then I'll suddenly feel really old. But I'm not a person who was writing since childhood. I was reading since childhood. I've always loved reading. I love being read to. I love the library. But it was really late in life when somebody said, well, why don't you try writing a book? It's like, do what? But then I took it very seriously. I went to graduate school. I got a PhD in creative writing at the University of Houston and studied with a lot of really great writers and was in a really great community. I went on to teach in universities, teach English and creative writing at universities in Mobile, Alabama, Nashville, Tennessee, and then I ended up at the University of Virginia where I edited a magazine. And then I just jumped off and started working with grown-ups one-on-one as opposed to college students who I love. But I also really love working with grown-ups one-on-one on writing good books. So I kind of took that whole, career and turned it into helping people with their specific books rather than teaching generally about writing. So I've been writing the whole time too. So I at this point, I pretty much divide my time between working on my own creativity and helping people with theirs.
Very good. Are you still teaching? Yeah. You're still teaching in university or
No, I'm not. I'm out of academia completely at this point. I do see the work that I do with people primarily as teaching. Like there are different people who do different things. So people want to write books. Some people edit. Some people coach. Some people, I call myself a book mentor because really I do all the editing. I do all that, but primarily I'm teaching people how to write a good book because, lots of people want to read a book. Lots of people are reading books, but the quality is the best marketing strategy is to write a really good book. And that, despite the fact that we love reading and we read tons of books, the actual rating a good book is sadly not automatic or magical. There's genuinely a craft that people have to learn. So that's where I step in and really take all those years of teaching and compress it into what they need for their book.
And do you think that do you think somebody can write a good quality book as their first book, because it's a craft, and if they've not done it before, do you see their first books as being really good, or do you reckon it's something that comes after a while? Or
yeah, I think a first book can definitely be good. If you have a vision, Harry Potter was basically J.K. Rowling's first book. So you definitely can write a good book first. Your first book can be really good. What I would say about it is that people who aren't, who haven't done it before, who aren't experienced with the craft, they make it hard for themselves in not knowing the process
Mm.
And then they don't make it hard enough on themselves, because they also don't know that it's an iterative process. And to write a good book almost always takes many drafts. So that first book, like my book, was written, that was my very, very first book. I don't even know how many drafts that went through, but I would say that it's not abnormal for a book to go through at least 7 drafts. I heard a New York Times bestseller, she has a yearly bestseller. She was giving a talk about the 7 revisions. Now that includes proofreading, copy editing, so on and so on. But really just to get the material down right takes 4 or 5 drafts. So people don't always understand that it does take repetition.
I think that will come as a surprise. It does for me, because you think, I mean, you think you write something, and then you'll definitely go through it, and you look for improvements. But to be actually going through, I think 7 drafts would come as a surprise for me, certainly, probably for a lot of people. And I'm guessing that's why people give up, right? Is that?
It is. I think there are two ways people give up. One is they don't understand that there are 4 different stages.
Okay.
So I can talk about those if you want me to.
Please, go
that
through.
helps people at the beginning of the process. Because if it's your first book and you haven't been to graduate school and you haven't been around people writing, there's no way for you to know the craft. There's no way to know what's normal. I joke with my clients who are like doctors and stuff. It's like as if I went to the hospital and tried to do your job, with no knowledge, no education, nobody showing me how. I was like, I would really mess it up. And I would probably end up crying in the corner. But there are 4 stages to writing a book. The first is what I call conceive, which is where you just have an idea kind of bubbling around in your head and you think it might be something. You start taking notes, maybe you start talking to people. And this can be a novel, a memoir, or how-to book. The second one I call create, which is really writing that terrible first draft. So it's really important just to get it out of your head onto the page. Don't worry about publishing. Don't worry about platform. Don't worry about grammar. None of that matters. You're really looking for that big story, that big idea. Are you helping people solve a problem, basically? And you can do that through entertainment. Novels are often entertaining, or memoir where you're sharing your life to help people with something, or how-to where you're, just pretty straightforwardly solving some problems. But you need to get those big story elements on the page. And people just often don't understand that. They're often like paying attention to their spelling, so on and so on. At that stage, you just really need to not think about any of that. And the next stage is where the craft comes in, and then you start your revision process, and it can go through easily 3 revisions just to get the craft right, to get the theme foregrounded, to get the world built correctly, to get the characters fully filled out, and really to shape that arc of the story so that it's working with real tension and inevitability. So I think there are 2 different things that go on in writing. One is expression, where you're expressing your vision, and the other is connection, where you're trying to share your vision with the world. And some people I shouldn't say just, it's like they want to express. And that is in and of itself a terrifically creative enterprise. You can learn so much from them. But if you want to connect with other people, you're going to have to learn the craft and apply it. So again, it's perfectly legitimate not to want to do that, but I think that if you are only looking at expression, not thinking about connection, you don't understand that process of revision and applying what people have been practicing for thousands of years, which is really the art of storytelling. So that's how you connect with people. That's why, like live performers, it's so important for them to take a song out and find out if people like it, and if they don't like it, go back and rejigger some more. But a lot of times writers just write by themselves and don't share it with the world and find out whether it's whether it's resonant or not. And sometimes you just have to work on it a little more to get it for people to hear. Then that very last stage is the actual connecting process where you're publishing, presenting it to the world and starting your marketing process.
Okay, I have some questions about the process. First of all, I can see that where I fall down is in stage 2, is to write without, with all the mistakes and not correcting any mistakes, not worrying about any of that stuff, because being constantly being, I think what I sort of recovering perfectionist is all the typos. I keep going back, and when I'm writing, even the blog post I've got, as I shared with you before this call, a project in the back of my drawer, and so that's definitely, so I never, I never get any further because I keep stumbling and I keep correcting there. Whereas what you're saying is that first, or that step 2, is actually just about getting everything down on paper and not worrying about it.
Exactly.
And then stage 3, then that's where the craft comes in, to where you actually write. And that sounds actually really interesting. So that's kind of something that, I could look forward to and go, okay, that's the stage when I start to organize everything, yes, and I start to make sense of things. So that's a whole different process.
Different stage, yes. And it is so normal to mix them up. It is so normal because, generally speaking, we are perfectionists, and we studied this when we were studying, KMCC. That is just a way for our creativity to get completely choked off.
Yeah.
And, we do want it to be good. We really do care.
Yeah.
But that is at a later stage. And there are actually several stages to that stage. So that, like, typos and so on are literally the very last thing you pay any attention to.
That's interesting. That's a really good point, actually. I'm having a bit of an aha moment. That's really good, because I correct and change as I go along, and I can't seem to stop it. I can't seem to. So it's a very long, process, and it's also very critical. And and it is stifling for my creativity, for the writing, because if it doesn't sound right, or this is wrong, then I keep going back. Where in actual fact, I should probably just, I won't get any further then, sort of thing. The other question I have is at what stage do you think it's good to share what your work? Because I know I heard this, Elizabeth Gilbert said that some interview, I think might have been with William Brown, where she shared what at the very beginning, you don't share with anybody, and then I think after a while, very, very few people get that sort of inner circle, because you're so vulnerable about your work. So if you get any critical comments, then that can stop you. What stage do you think you should share?
Yeah, I think that very first stage almost always should be just in isolation, because that's your expression stage, and you just don't need anybody commenting on it, because it's going to be a mess. It's Martha Beck talks about, like, the caterpillar turning into the butterfly, but what happens is that the caterpillar goes into the cocoon, and it doesn't, like, slowly develop into a beautiful butterfly by sprouting a wing and then a wing. It melts down. Like, it is just like nasty goo. You could never see a butterfly in there. It's so I apply that to book writing too. That's like your first draft. It just can be nasty goo. I can promise you. Mine are just awful, and I don't remember characters' names. I don't know anything about the world, but I just keep writing because that is just, I've done it enough now to know that is what that is supposed to be. That is supposed to be just a great big mess. And Lamont calls it a shitty first draft, so I'm not quoting. But that's because it needs to be bad. If it's not only can it be bad, it actually needs to be, because you're looking for the heartbeat, you're looking for the blood flow, you're looking for the thing that really matters. And that editor cannot be there for that process. Even your own internal editor has to just be put out of the room while you're, just really looking for the real thing in there, the real heart of it. So yes, I would definitely not show it to anybody unless it's somebody who is super experienced in what I call finding the bones, of a book, which actually I am really good at, just happens to be a gift, for seeing what the book wants to be. I would absolutely not show it to anybody who doesn't understand that, because I can't tell you how many people come to me and somebody says, oh, this is full of typos. And my stuff is full of typos. I'll send it out to my very small group of readers. I'll say, well, I see a lot of typos. I just say, totally ignore the typos. We're not at that stage. Is my story working? Are my characters real?
Okay.
So yeah, you need somebody, don't show it to anybody, or show it to somebody who's super experienced. When you start to show it to people, don't put it out there as like, do you like my baby? It's like, well, some people are going to like babies, give them instructions, test them out. Can you read a book in an early stage?
Yeah.
Here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for whether you like these characters. Do you like this world? Help them, give them direction. Don't just like, oh, do you like it? Help them understand, if they're not experienced beta readers or a coach or mentor or a writer who understands the process.
That's really helpful, actually. And it's funny because I've heard a lot of this before, and I've we follow people, I follow you, and so, but I guess I've not really, it hasn't sort of really sunk in so properly before, that the fact that I actually, it's that stage where I get stuck in, because I keep just correcting, and then I just get sort of lost with it, and very interesting. So you're writing a new book now, and do you want to tell us about that, and how that's going, or is that too early to? No, because I know you've shared
I have shared
the challenge.
Yeah, so I outed myself this fall. I realized that despite the fact that I'm like so jolly and really encourage people to get their books out there and work with tons of people who do, that I actually for several years have been rating books and not putting them out in the world. So I confessed it to people or get my email. It's like, okay, I am going to totally shame myself and just say, all right, I actually have 6 books I have not put out into the world, which is crazy. So,
hello, it's crazy because I read this one. It's so clever. You need to publish the other one.
Thank you. Yeah, I love that book. It's a strange book because it's kind of a book that it was almost an experiment in how much can you take out of a novel and still have a novel. That's because it has one character that's in the Adirondack Mountains in the winter, so not much happens.
Well, there's a lot happening for her, and
there's definitely,
and she's totally relatable. Actually,
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I have won awards. I've published a ton of essays. Don't ask me what happened, but I'm challenging myself to get over that. So I have, I'm actually focusing on the books that I'm reading right now, which is a spy thriller, which I've never written before. It's a little bit different from other spy thrillers because the spy isn't the main character, the spy's wife is. I've actually been writing it for a couple of years, and I have the weirdest process in the universe, which is I have to write by hand. Then I type it, then I write it by hand again, which seems completely insane. But this is actually my drafting process. I'm actually putting it through revisions as I do that. It's completely crazy. I don't recommend it, but it just happens to be what works for me. So I'm in my 4th draft of that, which means I'm typing my second handwritten draft, which happens to be right here. As you can see, like, it's a mess. It's still a mess. We have not gotten to that final polished stage. We won't get that till that till later. It's going to go through there's one last knock it on the head draft. That's what I call that last one. You just totally shake it down, make sure everything is fitting together. Then it's going to get proofread, and I won't do the proofreading because I can't proofread my own work. But I've challenged people to go along with me on that journey, is to, if they already have a draft, to take this last 100 days of the year and go through the process. So I'm talking about what I'm doing, but I'm teaching the craft as I go. So I showed people how to plan the end of the year using my planner, which you can get at my website, gingermoran.com. And all my videos are there too. And now I am working my way through what I call the 4 Ps, which is the steps that I use to teach craft. So all those bazillion years of teaching and rating, I boil down into my very fancily named 4 Ps system, which has to do with problem, people, place, and plot. So every Thursday at noon Eastern US, I do a Facebook Live, but then I post it on my blog too. So if you're following on my blog, you can see my weekly 100 days where I say where I am. I was kind of on target, but yesterday I totally flaked and now I'm behind, but I'll catch up. So, it's an imperfect process, because it's artistic, but I think that it's important to have that framework. It's important to have the framework for the creativity to exist inside. So right now I'm using the, putting it out to the world that I'm revising this book and preparing it for publication, which means looking at the options for publishing, preparing a query, a synopsis, identifying agents and publishers, and getting it ready. So I'm showing people how to do that while I'm doing it myself.
Okay. Well, that I guess also holds you sort of accountable.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And I was wondering actually as well whether you have, I know you got this 100-day challenge, but do you have any, how do you keep yourself planned or organized or structured or whatever? I see you have this behind you on the wall.
Oh, yes. That's my that's like my whole year calendar system.
Oh, it is? So that's you.
So everything has to be very visual and tactile for me. Like electronic things just don't feel real to me. So it has to be out there. Yeah. You and I talked about this before. I think there's a huge overlap in the Venn diagrams of ADD and creativity. There's almost so much overlap that they're indistinguishable. Sure. So, for me, the real, planning itself can become an activity. So it's almost an action. It's like, okay, that was not playing. Now you actually have to do. I should do work with an ADD coach who helps shove me into what he calls engagement. But it's you have to find that right balance between planning, and I do have a planner. I do have daily goals, but basically that's what my planning system is about, is using the Martha Beck turtle system for having a big audacious goal and breaking it down into what she calls turtle steps, which we learned about that same thing in KMCC. It's like, your big, fascinating, exciting, sexy goal is supported by habits and routines and very, very, very small steps. So I just, my small steps right now are to type 5 pages a day, which is not an enormous commitment, but sometimes it's even that seems enormous. But if I can stay focused on something really small, that is how I'll get to that big goal. So really I start with my dream and then go backwards to the small steps, the Kaizen steps, really. And if it seems like it's too big or too overwhelming, it's like, make it smaller. And I cannot tell you how many people I work with that is so helpful for. It's like, they make it too hard. by setting the standard way too high. And it's like, well, make that half that size, make it half that size until you can actually do it.
Yeah. And I totally did all that. I mean, and also look, from doing the research to doing these interviews, it seems to me actually also that the people that, you know, like yourself, the people that do publish things, that do finish things, use the small step approach. It seems to be like a common denominator that is what works. It's totally just for me. It's like you said, so helpful when I explain these things and for other people, coaching clients and stuff. It really is. It's so many, like we have this conversation about, you know, highly creatives and the AD and the sort of the overlapping and shiny objects and so many things going on. I'm just saying with the visual and the handwritten has to be, the digital thing doesn't work for me. There's no impact whatsoever. I need to have things written down.
Actually, a paper planner. I use the Living Well planner, and I just have to put colors in it. The colors, I don't know why, colors really make a difference. So
and also that trap of you can. I mean, I've had this conversation or had this talked about this before about how, you know, how the planner can become the project in itself, and I think that's when you need to stop. There's something wrong with that. You know, the planner is meant to help you, not to take you away from your actual job. And I think that's, you know, that can get.
It's hard to move from that because I think that is, again, you know, for me, I get caught in perfectionism. Like, is this the perfect plan?
Yes.
Well, you know what? You're just going to have to go out there.
Yeah, it's a type of procrastination where you just think, well, let me plan it some more and let me make it look all nice and pretty, and that actually stops me from doing what I'm meant to do. So yeah.
You have to do it.
Yeah, I actually find sometimes just a simple piece of paper, I sort of write things down on a notepad. I mean, and just, you know, that's and then I write my daily steps in a cheap planner I bought. So it doesn't, just to say, it doesn't have to be a big expensive full of bells and whistles planners to be made to create something really, really good. So to talk about your process, is there, you know, are there stages that is for you easier and more hard? I mean, now you've been through this, you've written a lot, you've been through this process quite a few times. Do you have like a pattern, or is it like, you know, the first step is really you fly through that, and then it, you know, which part seems to be trip you up the most?
Well, I think that right now the part that is clearly tripping me up the most is getting my work out into the world. And I've been reading this little book, which people may have seen, Austin Kleon's work. And I really like this because it's really about, you know, get over yourself. It just doesn't have to be that big a deal. Just put something out there. You know, I just came back from this wonderful music festival, the Bristol Rhythm and Roots Festival. And I've gone for like 9 years. Every single year, I am so admiring of these young musicians who are just getting out in front of people, and it inspires me every single time. It's like, get out there and try it out. You have to. That's just absolutely crucial part of the process. So that's the thing that I'm challenging myself to just do, because I have very high standards. It's like, it only is going to be one way, and it's like, well, you know what, just isn't that way. You know, it isn't that way. But so I think that the other thing I've had to teach myself is that I love that beginning part of the process where it's just like all so fun, and I'm just coming up with stuff, and like that's the ADD part where it's just like, and I actually see it in terms of neurotransmitters. Like, that's the dopamine stage where it's just like, ooh, boy, is this fun. And like, I've come up with the craziest things in this book. It's like, and I think anybody who's writing fiction knows, like, you have no idea what your characters are going to do. They'll surprise the heck out of you. So mine ended up giving a Halloween party that had a Moroccan theme. So I ended up having a friend of mine who is a brilliant cook help me come up with the menu. And she came up with such a good menu. We thought, you know what, we actually have to do this party because this food sounds so good. So you can just fall in love with things like that. It's so fun and exciting. But then when you get to that crafting part, I've had to teach myself that I'm actually moving into a whole other part of my brain. I'm moving into a whole different neurotransmitter. I'm in that serotonin. It's much less exciting. It's much less glittery. It's actually really hard work, but it is deeply satisfying. And just to see that as equally rewarding, it's just different. You just have to, it's just not, woohoo. Like, does this character that is serving this Moroccan food disappear after that? Or, do you finish that loop? It's like really looking for things like that. I've just really had to train myself that that's really fun too. Just different fun.
Would you say that's where flow is also, when you get deep into it? Yeah. Well, obviously maybe, but yeah, when you get deep into the nitty gritty and you kind of get so absorbed that's where that's fun. Do you have any, I mean, we sort of touched on it as well, but do you have any specific writing tips, like something that you say to your coaching clients, or if they get stuck in a particular stage, or you talked about breaking steps down really, really small, that's super helpful. Do you have any other tips up your sleeve?
So I think that it's just, you're always looking for that balance between structure and looseness that will actually get the work done. So I think that, one of the tricks that I use on myself, and I've done this for many years, is I actually write really early in the morning, and not everybody is a morning person. Some people are night people, but what is important is to write at a time when your editor is still asleep or has already gone to sleep. So that, especially in those early stages, you're not choking it off. Sometimes you just have to trick yourself.
How do you do that then? How would you?
I just get up really early, and I did this especially when my kids were little. It's like I got up before they did, and wrote semi-consciously. So, and again, just for a very short period of time. I mean, if I write half an hour a day, that's 2 pages.
Okay.
And that gets you a way too big book by the end of the year if you just do 2 pages a day. So
see, that's so helpful, because I think most people could do 20 minutes to half an hour a day if they really wanted to, and still, this is where I've talked about this as well in the other interviews, is that where small steps trip people up, is that they think, well, I never get anywhere if all I have to do is 5 minutes here, but you do actually, because that does mean, like you said, in half an hour you can write 2 pages, and in a year, that's, whereas if you say to yourself, I've got to sit down and write a book now, chances are you're not going to sit down and write a book, so you won't get it done. In a year you'll have nothing done. Whereas this,
so it is really understand too that professional writers who this is all they do all day, this is their profession, they make their living on it. I don't know any of them who write ever for more than 4 hours a day. Really just maximum. It's hard work. And that 4 hours isn't writing, it's researching, pacing around, going to the library, all of that. It's just hard work. It's very concentrated work. So I think you have to find the measure of time that works. For me, it's like half an hour to an hour. It's really hard for me to do more than that. And I can do, like, oh yeah.
I think also, people forget, like the Elizabeth Gilberts and all of these, that they people write for a long time before they're published, and they've had a lot of rejection, and they weren't always super rich and wealthy from their books. So it's you, again, if you don't do the half an hour, if you don't do the little steps, it's fine, you won't get there. And I think, what is it about? I mean, because like you, when I write, like when I have to write a long story, or when I write I do by hand, and then I type it up like you do. And I think, what is it that keeps you or has kept you going? To writing all these years, when it's, even though it's been difficult, and even though kids growing up and all this sort of stuff, what's kept you? What is it about writing that you really love, and what keeps you going?
Well, so I'll say the negative side first, which is I have experienced, and people around me have experienced too, I am not a very good person if I'm not writing. I've had people say, could you please go write? It's like, I'm just cranky without it. It's just food for my soul, and it's sort of like eating. It's like, it's just I just crash. And can be kind of cranky and bitchy. So it's like, okay. So that's the negative side of it, is I'm not right without it. And the positive side is, I just love it. I love being gone in my world. I love my characters. I honestly feel like when I'm in the old folks' home, I'm probably going to think all of my novels were real. And because I have had that happen to me, like I'll be telling like a story about something that happened and I'll think, oh no, wait a minute, that was in a book. But it's so, it's like reading for me. It's like I can live so many more lives because I read. And writing is just taking that to a whole, I'm like making all those other lives. I'm just happy there. I remember Tom McGuane, somebody was interviewing him and they were saying, oh, writers talk about how hard everything is. And like McGuane's eyes they just kind of went to heaven. He's like, are you kidding? It's like, I love writing. Yeah. It's just, I'm just happy there. It is that flow place. It's like I've always lived in my imagination, and I get to do it as a profession now. It's like, ooh, hey, what's wrong with that?
You're lucky. Yeah, definitely. I think also being the coach, it's what we try and help people and to experience that. It's not even the product. It's just to help people get to that stage, experience that love and that total oneness where everything is just this is it, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm meant to do, and that feeling I think is worth. I think once you've experienced that, you want more and more and more, and it becomes like it. Yeah.
I just was recently, I just started giving a talk about this. I just discovered that the root of the word genius didn't always mean a very special person with a special gift. It actually is, the word is associated with the same word as beget. And it really meant the spirit, the special and totally unique spirit you're born with. Mm-hmm. And everybody has it. Mm-hmm. Nobody doesn't have it. Yeah. We covered up, and some people are fine not expressing it, but some of us are deeply satisfied by finding it and expressing it, whatever that means. It can be journal writing, blogging, storytelling, but there's a special you that is there, that is your genius, and it wants to be in the world.
Yeah.
However it's going to happen. It could be a birthday cake. That could be your genius. That's the way that gets expressed. Or raising a family super well, or running a business really well. It doesn't. The form matters not at all. It's the expressing whatever that is that came in you, and only you, nobody else.
Amen. Nobody could say
go to church.
But it's so true, and it's so that's it. That's what it's all about. Beautifully said, Ginger.
Thank you.
That's it. I think we should just leave it at that beautiful note. And I think people, where could people find you? On gingermoran.com?
gingermoran.com, yes, my website, and you can get my planner there and read my blogs. And I do have a couple of programs that people can order my book there. Yeah, you can order my book there, and hopefully soon I'll have some more books.
Spy book. Ooh, love spy films. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very good. Okay, Ginger, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking
My
time to talk
pleasure.
to
I
me. I've
love
really
talking
enjoyed it.
about it. I love talking with you.
Okay, thank you so much, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Sounds good. Bye bye.